We're about to dive into the story of a family that clawed its way out of obscurity to become, without a doubt, the most powerful banking dynasty in history. They didn't just influence economies, they shaped wars and the destinies of entire nations. This is the incredible, true story of the House of Rothschild. And this quote, it really gets to the heart of it all. You've got these two pillars holding up their entire empire: absolute, unshakable family unity, and this, just unstoppable drive for profit. It was that exact combination that let them build a fortune that literally outlasted empires. So, where does a story like this even begin? Well, it's not in some grand palace. Our story starts in the crowded, cramped alleys of the 18th century Frankfurt ghetto, with the founder of the dynasty, a man named Mayer Amschel Rothschild. You have to understand, Mayer was up against a wall of restrictions. As a Jew in Frankfurt at that time, he couldn't own land, he couldn't touch lucrative trades like silk or weapons. So what do? You get smarter. He started out in textiles, but he quickly realized the real money was somewhere else, trading rare coins. This is where his genius really shines through. Mayer perfected this brilliant and, pretty controversial strategy. He was a court agent, which basically means he was a sort of personal stockbroker for the incredibly wealthy Prince William of Hesse-Kassel, and he used a tactic we now call front-running. Here's the play-by-play, and it's amazing. When the prince wanted to buy gold coins, Mayer would first borrow money to snap them up for himself. Then he'd turn around and sell those exact same coins to the prince, but at a higher price. And on top of that, he'd collect a massive 8% commission. He was literally getting paid twice on every single deal. By the end of the 1700s, he was the richest man in Frankfurt. But here's the thing about Mayer. Personal wealth was just the first step. His real ambition, his true vision, was to create a family dynasty that would stand the test of time, a financial empire that would span generations. So how do you turn that vision into a reality? Well, Mayer knew that to build something that big, he had to think beyond Frankfurt. He needed to conquer the financial capitals of Europe. So he took his 5 sons, his 5 arrows, as he called them, and he sent them out. By placing a son in Frankfurt, Vienna, London, Naples, and Paris, he wasn't just creating a chain of banks. No, this was far more clever. He built a private, cross-continental intelligence network that was faster and more reliable than any government's. Now, of all the sons, Nathan, the one sent to London, the heart of the British Empire, he was the most ambitious of the bunch. This quote just tells you everything you need to know about his mindset. He wasn't content to just sell textiles. He controlled the entire supply chain, the raw material, the dye, the final product. He was taking 3 profits, where everyone else was just taking 1. And then came the moment that would launch them into the stratosphere. The Napoleonic Wars are raging across Europe. The Duke of Wellington is winning, but he's on the brink of total disaster. Why? Because he's in France, and he has no way to pay his soldiers. He needs gold, and he needs it now. The British government is in a panic, and Nathan, he sees the opportunity of a lifetime. He goes out and starts buying up every ounce of gold he can find. So when the government comes knocking, he not only sells them the gold, but he solves their impossible logistical nightmare of getting it to the front lines in France. As he said himself, it was the best business he ever did. You see, this huge win wasn't just about money, it was about information. The Rothschilds' real secret weapon was their intelligence network. They used private carriers, high-speed horses, even carrier pigeons, for goodness sake, to get financial news before anyone else. And that meant they could turn the chaos and uncertainty of war into their single most profitable business, currency speculation. But what happens when the star player is gone? After Nathan's death, the family faced a huge challenge. The world was changing fast, and financing wars, their bread and butter, was getting a lot more competitive. They had a choice: adapt or die. So the leadership of the family passes to the youngest brother, James, stationed in Paris. And he sees the writing on the wall. The massive profits from government bonds are starting to shrink. So he pivots the family's immense capital towards the next great industrial revolution: railroads. They didn't just invest in railroads, they placed themselves at the absolute heart of the industrial age. And they were so smart about it. They used these things called syndicates, which meant they were pulling other people's money to finance these enormous projects. It was brilliant. They reaped huge profits while keeping their own personal risk to a minimum. And the next generation, they didn't just build wealth, They started to build a new kind of power. In London, Nathan's son Lionel pulled off two incredible feats. He single-handedly saved the French branch during a revolution, and then he achieved something his father never could. He broke into the political establishment, becoming the very first practicing Jewish member of parliament, a truly monumental step for his people. For almost 100 years, the Rothschilds were the undisputed kings. But when you're on top for that long, you start to think you're untouchable. And all the while, across the Atlantic, a new American banking empire was rising, one that was ready to challenge their dominance, the House of Morgan. And the big clash finally came in 1870. France goes to war with Prussia. The Rothschilds, with all their experience, took one look and said, France is going to lose. We're not touching that loan. But this upstart American banker, Junius Morgan, he saw it completely differently. He bet that France would pay its debts, win or lose. He took the gamble, raised a massive loan for them, and walked away with an absolute fortune. But here's where the story takes a wild turn. This fierce rivalry quickly turned into a powerful and necessary alliance. During the American Panic of 1893, the U.S. government was literally days away from going broke, running out of gold. To save the country from collapse, J.P. Morgan turned to the one family in the world he knew had enough golds to pull it off, the Rothschilds. And together, they pumped 3.5 million ounces of gold into the U.S. Treasury. The power of their two names combined was just staggering. When they issued government bonds to the public to back this deal, the entire offering was snapped up in just 30 minutes. It was the clearest signal yet that the center of global finance was making a decisive shift towards America. But just as they reached this incredible peak of influence, the 20th century arrived, and it brought with it a storm of challenges. World wars, internal feuds that threatened to tear the entire dynasty apart at the seams. I mean, just look at this list of crises. The family was totally fractured. In World War I, you had Rothschilds on opposing sides of the battlefield. Then came the rise of the Nazis, who seized their assets and forced the family into exile. After the war, the dynasty was weakened. It was fragmented, and it was facing scandals that tarnished its once perfect name. And all that pressure from the outside, it caused an explosion on the inside. In the 1980s, the family was torn apart by a battle for the bank's very soul. On one side, you had Sir Evelyn, the traditionalist. He wanted to keep the bank small, private, and under absolute family control. On the other was his cousin Jacob, the modernizer. He argued they had to expand. They had to adapt to the new world of finance, even if it meant risking that sacred family control. And this battle, this conflict, it really gets to the heart of the entire Rothschild story. For over 2 centuries, they navigated wars, revolutions, and just radical change, always grappling with this one fundamental question. Their survival is a masterclass in adaptation, and it leaves us wondering, what really is the secret to creating a legacy that actually endures?